Welcome to the Paper Talk podcast, where we have candid conversations with emerging artists and industry leaders about all things paper flowers. Through this podcast, we hope to continue to share knowledge, connect all of us together, and elevate the artistry of each and every one of us.
Hello, I'm Gwen Wen.
I'm Jessie Chu.
I'm Priscilla Park.
Our mission is to share,
connect,
and elevate the paper floral industry.
We are some of the voices behind the Paper Florists Collective. Welcome to our podcast, Paper Talk.
You are listening to episode 7 of Paper Talk. Today we're having a roundtable discussion of what it's like running paper flower business. We have 3 lovely ladies, all at different stages of their paper flower journey. We have Grace Gibbons of Paper Floral Co., Susan Bonn of Susan Bonn Design, and Jessa Parker of 14 Keys Design. Welcome, ladies.
Why don't you go around and let's introduce yourself and tell us more about who you are, what's the name of your company, and how you started your paper flower journey. Grace, would you like to start?
So I've been making paper flowers for 2 years now. I have a studio in Frenchtown, New Jersey, in Hunterdon County, right along the Delaware River, that I opened last September, where I host birthday parties and ladies' nights, and I teach workshops and I take custom orders. And I started my journey 2 years ago after making the flowers for my own wedding using wooden flower. And I discovered paper flowers during the process of learning how to design. And at the time, I wasn't feeling my best. I was feeling rather sad, down in the dumps, possibly depressed. I'm sure that if I had gone to a doctor, I probably would have been diagnosed with depression. And I started making paper flowers because I was fascinated with it. I saw a video on how to make a crepe paper flower echinacea. I'm sure it must have been Tina from ABC TV, but I'm not positive. So I just purchased the materials to do this myself. And I discovered Leah Griffith, and I discovered Amity Bean in the Paper Florist group. And I just started creating, and I was so much happier and I felt so much better. And I truly believe there is something to creative therapy, because I just started to feel so much joy in what I was doing, and I really, really liked it. So I just never stopped, and I took the steps to begin a small business out of my home. And when my husband started finding floral stem wire in our silverware drawer, I realized that it was time to get out of my house and expand. And so here I am. You know, we have a nice house, but there's 5 of us, and we're a blended family, so we have to be considerate of each other. And I was beginning to overtake every single corner. And I am not really a pack rat. I like minimal decor. And so when there's craft supplies in this corner and craft supplies in this corner, and I honestly don't even remember sticking floral stem wire in the silverware drawer. I honestly do not remember doing that.
It probably fell out of your sleeve.
It may have. It may have, but he opens up the drawer when he's setting the table for dinner and pulls it out and asks what he's supposed to do with it. And so it was time. I also had overtaken the corner of his house that he used for his work, where he would take his conference calls. And when he would come out of his office and go want to sit on the chair to take his conference call, and I'm sitting there with glue and paper and scissors, it wasn't quite convenient for him. It was time.
How about you, Susan? What's your story?
I started dabbling in paper flowers about 4 years ago. I was still in my corporate job. I was with Morgan Stanley for 40 years and retired last year. So I was looking for something that I would like to do possibly after I retired. And I've always been crafty. I love to decorate my home. I love to do party planning. I love to do all those things. And I was actually making greeting cards at the time, and I still make a lot of greeting cards. So I discovered Leah Griffith, like a lot of us did. I kind of started on Leah's site, and I had done some research on on Google, just looking at paper flowers, and saw some amazing things. Discovered Tiffany Turner and Lynn Dolan. And of course, I'm friends with them now. They're pretty much neighbors of mine. So I just saw them and said, I can make that. If they could do it, I could do it. And I made my first paper flower was a ranunculus, crepe paper ranunculus with a video tutorial from Leah. It was horrible. I keep it in my space just to remind myself how far I've come. If I'm feeling like, oh, this isn't working, or I lose my flower making mojo, I look back at what I've done in the past, and it just kind of brings you forward about, wow, the work really has paid off. Since I retired, I wish I had a space like Kelly Grace does, because I have taken over a room in our home. It formerly was a guest room. It's now entirely my space. It's packed with cabinets, and I need more. We always need more. I wish I had a bigger space. I work in the house, do most of my business is online. I've had a blast doing it. And in retirement, I don't know how I ever found time to go to work, because I'm busier now than I ever was working. But I've got to meet, the best part of this is I've got to make so many new friends, like the 4 ladies here and Jessie, that we've built this camaraderie in our community that is just really priceless.
How about you, Jessa? Tell us your story.
So I'm Jessa Parker of 14 Keys Design. I actually went to school for product design. So I've been doing the creative thing for quite a while. And growing up, my mom was always like nurturing that in us. So that was really fun. After college, I worked for this company that we designed foot protectors that go on the end of mattresses in showrooms. And I was losing some of my creativity there. And for my wedding in 2015, I did all of the flowers. And I hand cut like 150 cardstock roses, and I couldn't feel my thumb for like a week. I finally got myself a Cricut, which was a complete game changer. But I decided later, or early 2016, to start the 14 Keys business. And I was like, okay, I've got one flower. Let's use this year and develop a library of flowers, because I didn't want to just keep making, I call it the Parker Rose, keep making that Parker Rose over and over again. And now I have about 35 flowers that I make in 3 sizes, which is like, I feel like a really big accomplishment for me. But it was fun doing all of those templates are mine, and all the weird process of how to actually build the flower. And it's awesome to see the community grow on, like, especially on Instagram. There's a few amazing cardstock paper florists, like Two Clever Designs and Stephen Haar. A couple are my favorites, but it's awesome to see like the differences in cardstock and crepe paper and foamerin and wood. And it's just awesome to see how people can get creative with this, just like one subject. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been so exciting. I love that our community have so many different mediums. I mean, we're a paper florist, so it includes like, cardstock, crepe paper, wood, sola, which is so amazing. I'm just fascinated by that medium. We need to definitely get a podcast person to come in and talk about that particular medium, because I feel like you soak it a little bit and then you form it and cut it and it comes in strips of ribbons, which is so interesting to me.
I have some if I could find it. It looks like this. It is a roll of wood, and it's extremely brittle, and you just wet your hands a little bit.
So you don't soak
There are some flowers that you can make where you want to soak the wood, but there's other flowers that you don't want to soak the wood. You just want a little bit of wetness on your hand.
And does it melt?
Melts very well.
What glue do you use?
It's I actually use embroidery thread.
No glue at all?
Again, it depends on the flower. You can use glue, always white glue, and usually what I've had to do is put glue on floral wire and use the floral wire to apply the glue by wrapping the wood around the stem wire, and you secure it with embroidery thread. It can be secured with hot glue, or regular glue, but it's actually faster to use embroidery thread, floral tape style.
Interesting.
That is so interesting. Wow. We'll have to do a video on that because I'm just so curious about that
actually
process.
One of my more popular workshops that I've done here in Frenchtown. It is one of the only ones that have, me being new, still brand new, brick and mortar business, getting my name out there. It was one of the first ones where I filled up. People were fascinated with how to make a wooden flower, more so than paper. Pretty funny. That being said, I have 12 people coming tonight for a class.
Congrats.
For paper flowers.
Yay. Congratulations. So I think that's a good transition. One of the things I want to ask you guys is, how do you find your customers? How do you go about advertising your business? And how have you changed from what you've done at the beginning to where you are right now?
It's kind of fun. So I grew up in a small town, and I found that a lot of my customers are like people I went to high school with that are, oh, you do something neat now. And it's word of mouth. And it's just a lot of friends of friends and people that see what I do online and are interested that way. And there's this one bride I'm working with now, is she wants to keep everything local and small business. And that's why she contacted me to do her floral crown and her bouquet, because she's like, oh, I knew you from high school, and I thought that would make it even more special. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I would be honored. So that's how mine's going.
That's great. How about you, Susan?
After going to the master class, I have to say, I just felt so empowered that I came home and I stepped up my game pretty dramatically. I joined the local Marin Wedding Pros. I'm in Marin County, California, Marin Wedding Pros on Facebook. I joined that group, and I immediately had a request from the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation gala planner to make flowers for their signage. I made big flowers. I made Priscilla kind of flowers. Big flowers, the florists in the community, and have had lunch or coffee with a few of the florists and some of the planners, all from this local little Marin wedding planners group. I've even worked with one of the planners in the area to do an exhibit at a local destination wedding spot here in Marin, where we're going to swap it out, and I'll be swapping out my bouquets in there, and we'll probably do that quarterly. So that'll be super fun. And other than that, it's been people that I meet, people that I already know. I'm very active in the figure skating community, so a lot of the skaters are interested in ordering flowers for themselves, gifts, whatever. So I found that reaching out to local businesses, people like yourself, has been the best way for me to get my brand out there.
You know, so many people want to start selling paper flowers, but they don't know where to start. You guys have talked about where you find your customers, but besides finding your customers, what is you guys found to be your most difficult challenge that you've faced with your paper flower business?
Pricing correctly, because what we do is worth it. And there's so much time put into each and every flower. And I don't want to feel like embarrassed for asking for like if a bride wants a bridal bouquet and I'm like, that's going to be like, it's trying to kind of make sure that we're representing ourselves and our craft correctly and pricing it correctly and getting the respect back from our customers that what we do is worth it. So that's been the most difficult part, is validating the price.
Yeah, I just love that. I feel like all of us are nodding our head and validating what you're saying. It's like pricing is such a key component that I feel like everyone struggles at the beginning, where they're trying to figure out their footing into their business. And I think the really key thing is, if you're comfortable with saying that price out loud to someone, then you're going to feel better about making that flower. And they're going to feel great about receiving that flower with that particular price point. Because when you're confident, they're going to feel it.
So I do agree that pricing is difficult, but I've been able to put it in perspective lately. The last few times that I purchased a $4 or $5 coffee, or when I have gone into the local gift shop and purchased a $30 jar. It is so much more in perspective, or my cheese and olive oil shop across the street, where I'll buy a $20 olive oil bottle. All that, when you think about the little luxuries, those are luxury items. And our items are luxury items as well. So I am beginning to have a much easier time pricing for my time. And it is getting easier and easier, especially when you have to deal with the other major challenge, which to me is balance. Our work is so handmade, and we want to get our work done and please our customers and move on to the next project, and maybe leave room for our personal projects as well, right? And it is so hard to have a work-family life balance. And I'm married to my shop, but I'm also married to my husband, and I'm a mother and have all these responsibilities, and it's extremely hard to balance that. So, and I want to get paid for my time away from my family. Balance and price are the two biggest things. And self-care. I went for a run this morning and wished I had not stopped doing that regularly, because let me tell you, when you start that again, it is really hard.
I agree. I think pricing is probably the most difficult thing that we do. The two most frequent questions I get asked when people see my work is, number one, how long did that take? And number two, how much does it cost? I've really made people realize by asking that first question, that's a segue into why it costs what it does, because it's art. It takes time and it takes talent. When you're buying a flower from me, you're not buying that flower. You're buying the years that I put in learning how to manage and perfect the technique of making that particular bloom. I also highly subscribe to the idea of under promise and over deliver. I always include, when a client gets a bouquet from me, there's more in there than what they thought they were going to get. Whether it's one bloom more or more foliage, something, a prettier vase. I just really believe in that under promise and over deliver. You look like a hero every time if you over deliver. So, and by the under promise, it's don't make promises you can't keep. Don't tell somebody you can make something when you aren't really sure whether or not you can. And so I believe that under promise, be truthful in what you're promising the client of what you can deliver. And then when you do deliver more, deliver it better, prettier, more color, whatever, something more than what they expected. And that feeling that they get, that emotional joy, the endorphins that release when they see something beautiful that surprises them, for us to see them do that is priceless. And for me, the joy of delivering flowers in person is way better than putting them in a box and shipping them off, because you get to see that joy in someone's face. And that's why we do what we do, is because we make joy.
So true. So Jessa, one thing I want to ask, because you're a little bit different from the other florists, is that you do cardstock. So tell me why you chose this one and why you stuck with it. And I know at the masterclass, it was the first time ever for you to do crepe paper. So why do you love cardstock so much?
I like cardstock because, to me, I don't know, the material just speaks to me a bit better. I'm half in love with my Cricut. So I use the Cricut and a template cutter for that. And it's just, I love being able to create the templates, put it on the sticky mat, and get my petals cut out. And then from there, like, I can create texture on the edges of the paper, but then I can just mash it and roll it and do what I need to do to the paper, and then create the volume that way. I tried for one day, I tried pre-masterclass using crepe paper, and I was like, this is a little too loosey-goosey for me. And I also like with it, I learned how to dilute acrylic paint. And so I've been doing custom colors for painting my paper. And I love me some Paper Source paper. So I get their Eco White, because it's not like a bleached teeth kind of white. It's like an a subtle, more floral white in my opinion. And I use that as my base for like everything. And they've got these parent sheets that are 28 by 20 inches. And so I can paint that whole thing, cut it down. And the texture of it for me just works. And the stiffness of it for me just works. And it keeps its curls and its wrinkles. And I love it.
So where do you source your paper?
It's Paper Source. It's a company.
Yeah. So is that where you find all your paper, through Paper Source and not through like Cards and Pockets and Paper Mark and all these other
We don't have those here. Are those online?
Yeah, they're online.
Oh, okay. Well, I usually like to feel the paper first. So Paper Source was, I used to live in Wilsonville, Oregon, and it was a 15-minute drive for me. So, and the quality of their paper is awesome. So you can see behind me that on my sticky mat, I have a low quality black paper that just stuck to the mat. And I'm like kicking myself for even buying it. But I go to Michael's because they have a military discount, which really helps.
Mm-hmm. So I think my question to you is, because you're selling so many flowers, why aren't you buying things wholesale?
Because I took a break and went to work at a fresh flower company for a couple years, so I didn't renew my business license yet. So once I get back more into, and now that my daughter's napping consistently, I can get back into doing my flowers and get the business license and then do wholesale. So.
And your flowers are amazing. Like when I think cardstock flowers, yours aren't quite what I think of when I think cardstock.
They're not
flowers.
crafty, right?
On Instagram. Yeah, they are amazing. The bouquet for the styled shoot that you posted, I just love those roses. That was just
Thank
amazing.
you very much.
Yeah, you guys need to check out her account. It's gorgeous.
What is the weight of paper that you use? I'm always curious. Is it truly a cardstock? A cardstock?
Let me
let
show you.
120 pound plus?
So a lot heavier.
Yeah. Or is it a lighter weight paper?
It's pretty thick. It's
So it's cardstock.
Cardstock. And I use my favorite mashing tool is those, what are these called again, Quinn?
Oh, I call them ball rollers.
I use these in a thick yoga mat.
Yeah.
And it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love this tool. It's really fantastic.
So that's my go-to. And also cake pop holders.
Oh, cake pop holders. Interesting.
Like these little round these are my twirlers. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Kelly Grace, what is your favorite tool that you use for your crepe paper flowers or any type of flowers that you use?
Oh gosh. I love my Kai scissors. Yes.
I know, right?
Yes. My life changed about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, when I saw one of your postings, Quinn, in the Paper Florist group about how you really liked your Kai scissors. And I was a little bit frustrated because I was still learning how to make crepe paper flowers. And I was struggling with my centers and obsessing over centers. I had a decent pair of Fiskars, but they just weren't doing what I needed to do. So I went online and I looked up the model that you had recommended in your posting, and they were out of stock, but I got a smaller pair and I used those for probably a good year, and they were fantastic. And then I went to the masterclass, and you provided us with these two. So yes. Now I have 4 pairs of Kai scissors, and I'd say that they are my favorite tool. I do keep scissors in my space for ladies who come in and want to learn. I can't afford yet to have a pair of Kai scissors for everybody, but I'm working on it.
How about you, Susan? What's your favorite tool?
Well, the Kai scissors, and I just bought another pair of Kai scissors because I'm addicted to them, and they're like embroidery scissors. Yeah. They're really cool. They're really great for quilling, which I do from time to time. But I have to say, my all-out favorite tool ever on the planet is the blending brushes. After you introduced us to the small one in one of the Posy boxes, I'm also a card maker. So a lot of the card makers were using the bigger brushes. And I got on Amazon and I ordered like 3 sets of those. And you can lay down color. You can really intensify color and it'll get the color into the paper. And I tell you, they are hands down my go-to for coloring paper. I love those brushes. I would never go back to using a sponge again after using the brushes. And like I said, I have at least 2 sets of them. And now I think I want to buy a couple more sets because I'd like to have 1 set for oranges and reds and 1 set for yellows and 1 set for blues and 1 for green. So yeah, I'm going to become, I've got to open a wholesale account with Pick and Fence to get some more of those.
Are you talking about the makeup blending brush?
Yes. That's what
that works with like diluted acrylic too.
Probably does. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are my favorite right now. I know as a podcast, you can't really see it, but they're probably about almost an inch wide, and it's like very thickly bristled together, and they're super soft, and it just blends in the colors.
And I use them
too
because I'm a card maker. I use them for blending ink.
Yeah,
and they blend ink like you can't, like butter. I've never seen anything like it. So I'm a convert. I'm a walking advertisement for that company. They're called life-changing brushes for a reason.
That's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. The half hour went by so fast. Can you tell us where everyone can follow you and find your work? Susan, why don't you start?
Pretty simple. It's Susan Bonn Designs, and it's Bonn, like Bonn in Germany. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and my website.
Wonderful. Jessa?
I'm Jessa Parker of 14 Keys Design. So that's 14 Keys Design. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. How about you, Kelly Grace?
I am Paper Floral Co. On Instagram. And I am Paper Floral Co. on Facebook as well.
Wonderful.
Thanks. And if you're following us on Instagram or the blog, we'll be sure to post all of everyone's links here. So just head to the blog post for this podcast and you'll be able to click on their link.